There are certain thinkers who don't just write about the world, they change the way we see the world itself. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel is one of those rare figures. For many, his name feels intimidating, wrapped in dense philosophy, complex ideas, and sentences that seem to go on forever. But hidden beneath all that complexity is one of the most revolutionary ways of understanding history, progress, and the human spirit. Hegel's vision was bold. He believed that conflict, rather than harmony, is what drives human progress forward. To truly grasp why his philosophy still matters, we need to travel back to his time, enter his mind, and understand what he meant by the dialectic. Hegel was born in 1770 in Stuttgart, in what is now Germany. His life coincided with a world in upheaval, revolutions in America and France, the rise and fall of Napoleon, and the dawn of industrial transformation. He grew up in an era that was anything but stable, and perhaps that's why his philosophy saw conflict not as a tragedy to be avoided but as a necessary engine of growth. From a young age, Hegel was fascinated by history, religion, and the unfolding of ideas through time. He studied theology, but his heart was always in philosophy, in asking what it means to be human and how humanity evolves. To understand Hegel, we first need to grasp the central concept he's famous for, the dialectic. At first glance, dialectic sounds like a complicated academic term, but the core idea is surprisingly intuitive. Hegel observed that progress, whether in thought, in history, or in our personal lives, rarely happens in a straight line. Instead, it unfolds through a process of tension and resolution. He explained it using 3 stages: thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Imagine a starting point, an idea, a system, or a belief. That's the thesis. Over time, the thesis generates its own opposition, something that challenges or contradicts it. This is the antithesis. The clash between these two forces doesn't leave us where we started. Instead, it produces a new idea or state, the synthesis, which reconciles parts of both the thesis and antithesis while transcending their limitations. The synthesis then becomes a new thesis, and the cycle begins again. Conflict, for Hegel, wasn't chaos, it was the universe's way of evolving toward something higher. Think about it in terms of history. Feudal societies gave rise to monarchies. Monarchies clashed with democratic ideals. The struggle between these systems eventually produced new forms of governance. For Hegel, every revolution, every social upheaval, wasn't a random breakdown but a step forward, a necessary tension leading to growth. This dialectical process applied not only to politics but to every aspect of human experience, including morality, religion, and even our understanding of freedom. What makes Hegel's vision so profound is that he saw history itself as rational. He believed there was a hidden logic behind the rise and fall of empires, behind wars and revolutions. To him, history was the story of human freedom gradually revealing itself, each conflict, no matter how painful, pushing humanity closer to realizing its full potential. In Hegel's words, the history of the world is none other than the progress of the consciousness of freedom. Of course, this idea is not without its challenges. Some critics accused Hegel of justifying violence or suffering by claiming it served a greater purpose. But that wasn't Hegel's intention. He didn't glorify conflict, he simply recognized it as inevitable. He believed that we cannot have progress without struggle, and that understanding this truth can help us find meaning even in difficult times. Hegel's dialectic also influenced how we think about the self. He argued that we come to know who we are not in isolation but through relationships with others. One of his most famous examples is the Master-Slave Dialectic, where he explored how identity and self-awareness emerge from a struggle for recognition. The master sees himself as powerful, but his sense of identity depends on the slave's recognition. The slave, in turn, through labor and resistance, gains a deeper awareness of himself. This dynamic shows that even unequal and oppressive relationships contain the seeds of transformation and change. The impact of Hegel's ideas cannot be overstated. His philosophy inspired generations of thinkers who shaped politics, economics, literature, and psychology. Karl Marx, for example, took Hegel's dialectic and applied it to material conditions, giving rise to historical materialism and the foundations of socialism. Existentialists like Kierkegaard reacted against Hegel's grand system but were shaped by his approach to individuality and history. Even in the modern world, we see echoes of Hegel's dialectic whenever we talk about learning from conflict or when societies debate and reform themselves after crises. But Hegel wasn't just a philosopher of conflict, he was also a philosopher of hope. His vision suggested that even in times of turmoil, humanity is moving toward greater freedom and self-awareness. This message resonates especially today, when global tensions, cultural clashes, and political polarization often make it feel like the world is falling apart. Hegel would remind us that these conflicts, while painful, might be part of a larger story, one that is still unfolding and aiming toward something higher. To appreciate Hegel fully, we must also acknowledge his limitations. His writing is notoriously dense, often criticized as unnecessarily complicated. Many readers throughout history have been frustrated by his obscure style. Yet, when we strip away the jargon, we find ideas that touch on the heart of human experience, that growth comes from struggle, that understanding requires opposites to collide, and that history is not a meaningless cycle but a journey toward freedom. Imagine applying Hegel's insight to your personal life. Think about the challenges you've faced, the setbacks, the disagreements, the moments of doubt. Often, these conflicts lead to a deeper understanding of yourself and your values. The pain of struggle becomes the foundation for wisdom. That's the essence of the dialectic. Life's tensions and contradictions aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities for transformation. Hegel's life itself reflected this pattern. He experienced failures early in his career, struggling to gain recognition as a philosopher. But he persisted, producing works like The Phenomenology of Spirit and The Science of Logic, which eventually established him as one of the greatest thinkers of his time. His journey, marked by frustration and perseverance, mirrors the very process he described, progress through conflict. Today, Hegel's philosophy continues to inspire scholars, leaders, and anyone searching for meaning in the chaos of history. His dialectical method encourages us to embrace challenges as part of a larger pattern of growth. While not all conflicts lead to progress, and not all suffering has purpose, Hegel's framework reminds us that transformation often arises from struggle. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest chapters, we may be on the path to something new. In a world where we often crave comfort and stability, Hegel's words challenge us to rethink what it means to advance. Progress, he teaches us, isn't born from avoiding conflict but from confronting it, learning from it, and transcending it. This message remains as vital now as it was in his own turbulent era. Hegel's legacy endures because he gave us more than a philosophy, he gave us a way to interpret history and our own lives. By understanding the dialectic, we learn to see conflicts, personal or collective, not as meaningless chaos but as moments of transformation. His vision invites us to trust in the process, to believe that humanity's journey, no matter how painful, is moving toward freedom and understanding. So the next time you face a conflict, in your work, your relationships, or your community, Remember Hegel's insight: every clash carries within it the seeds of something new, something potentially better. Progress is not a straight road, it's a path carved by struggle. And in that struggle lies the story of human growth.